How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. Yes, the Secret Service hearing is going on right now. I would love to play it for you live, except several members of Congress led by Nancy Mace have started cussing in the hearing, and I'm not going to risk profanity going out on the airwaves, even from members of Congress. They wouldn't get in trouble. We would. But the Democrats themselves are piling on the director of the Secret Service to resign. I'll get some audio for you here, and we will play it for you, shape it up for you here to play at the bottom of the hour, because she has lost the respect of Democrats and Republicans, and as the hearing has gone on, it's gotten even worse. She is completely out of her depth, showing the level of incompetence at that organization. But I want to shake things up a little bit here. I want to put this wild ride in perspective for you, because it's been a wild ride. My buddy Joe Cunningham, program director down in Lafayette at our affiliate there, he texted me last night and he said, "I long for boring and precedented times." Instead of exciting and unprecedented, he wants boring and precedented times, and I completely agree. What a whirlwind. Only a few weeks ago, I was telling my team as I was coming in for show prep, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. There's no news. I gotta work harder, and these breaking news days actually make for a lazy show, or can, because there's so much, so overwhelming. You could just hit the beat, move on, hit the beat, move on, hit the beat, move on. It's a crazy time. 2 months ago, Donald Trump was found guilty of 34 counts in New York City in a criminal trial. Less than 1 month ago, he then stood on stage with Joe Biden at a debate, and Joe Biden's campaign ended, dead man walking. A week and a few days ago, Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. That Monday, a week ago today, Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed his classified documents case. Later that day, he named J.D. Vance his running mate. Only a few days ago, Donald Trump accepted the nomination of president for the Republicans. And yesterday, Joe Biden withdrew from the race for president. It's been a crazy 2 months. Greg Bluestein, reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, put up a quote from Vladimir Lenin. "There are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen." Lenin. It's true. It's a good quote. It's so true. I'm going to say it. I say it all the time. I've warned you. Events change things. Harold Macmillan owns the quote, not me. Harold Macmillan was Prime Minister of Great Britain in the 1950s. He is said to have been Elizabeth II's favorite prime minister because they loved to gossip together about members of the British Parliament. Macmillan knew all the dirt. Macmillan was in a very weird marriage. His wife, his entire marriage, slept around on him and rubbed his nose in the fact, but he loved her dearly. Harold Macmillan got swept into office, and he got swept into office with a wave of support for the Tories. And a young reporter asked him what could change things. And he said, events, dear boy, events. Events change things. A year ago, Donald Trump got indicted by Alvin Bragg in this case and went from being behind Ron DeSantis in expectations for a nomination to skyrocketing in Republican support and raised a massive amount of money. He got into this year and his fundraising was off. It was down. He was trailing Joe Biden. 2 months ago, Donald Trump was found guilty in this criminal trial in New York, and his fundraising skyrocketed, so much so that in the very end of the second quarter of fundraising, Donald Trump raised so much money, he surpassed Joe Biden for all of the second quarter and is on track for historic fundraising for the third quarter. Fast forward a few weeks, he's on a debate stage with Joe Biden, and they have that famous clash. Joe Biden answers a question, and Donald Trump replies off the cuff, I don't know what he said, and I don't know that he knew what he said either. And that was the beginning of the end of Joe Biden's campaign. And for almost a month, 3.5 weeks, the Biden team has been convinced that they could hold on, convinced they could get another chance, convinced they could turn the corner. And every time Joe Biden tried, he said something else that reinforced the notion he needed to go, and his polling plummeted. And then a week and 2 days ago, an assassin nearly murdered Donald Trump. And it's amazing how we've moved on from that as if nothing really happened. In fact, Democrats have moved into their own conspiracy theories that for somehow or another, the Democrats believe that Donald Trump wasn't actually shot, or if he was shot, that he orchestrated the shooting himself. In fact, a third of Democrats believe that Donald Trump organized his own assassination attempt to help him politically. And we move from that to 2 days later, Judge Eileen Cannon dismissing the documents case, to that afternoon, him picking J.D. Vance as his running mate, to just a few days after that, him formally accepting the Republican nomination in a very long speech that in hindsight, I think even he would agree, could have been sharper, more precise, and anticipating a Biden dropout. And then Joe Biden says he's going nowhere. On Friday, Kamala Harris did a call with Democratic donors telling them Joe Biden was going nowhere and they needed to stick in it and they were going to beat Donald Trump. And the callers on the call said it was a ludicrous call. And while all of that was going on, Joe Biden's campaign was preparing detailed polling for him that shows neither he nor Kamala Harris are beating Donald Trump, but that Kamala Harris is doing better than Joe Biden in the polling. So he leaves. He dropped out of the race. As an aside, if I were the CEO of CrowdStrike, I would be thanking God for this news cycle. Because on Friday, CrowdStrike issued a security patch globally that took out the internet from China to Europe to the United States, melting down airlines. Delta Airlines still struggling to recover. Companies all over the world, healthcare systems, hospitals, ATMs, banks, they all got taken out by CrowdStrike. And no one's talking about how a single company could take out the world's internet with a security upgrade, because we're talking about Joe Biden being shoved out the window by the Democrats. And as he falls to his political death, they praise him as the greatest president of all time. Splat. What a wild, wild turn of events. Events change things. And with events changing things, I want to say this to you. Don't take anything for granted. Events will still change things. Donald Trump. Now, I need you to hear me say this in its entirety, and it's not my own thought. Alex Castellanos, longtime Republican operative, strategist, consultant, who's a very smart guy. He made this point. I want to attribute it to him in case there's blowback and hate mail towards me, but it's a very smart point. This is Alex Castellanos' point. Donald Trump has never been closer to losing than at this moment. Doesn't mean he's going to lose. But Donald Trump was going to beat Joe Biden, and now there's a new candidate. And as Alex says, whom the gods would destroy, they would first make overconfident. Trump should still be expected to win the election. He has the advantage. Life was better and the world was safer for Americans when he was president than it has been under his opponent. And Kamala Harris isn't just Kamala Harris, but she's the Harris in the quote-unquote Biden-Harris administration. But if the Trump campaign gets overconfident now, they got out Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is a disaster, well, he could still lose. The Democrats do have a better ground game than the Republicans. The Republicans have largely outsourced their ground game to third parties like Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, and the technology they're using isn't up to snuff. But people are getting rich. Events can change things. Don't get confident, Republicans. Don't get confident, Democrats. In fact, if anything, Democrats, you should be really concerned because of Harris's track record. But both sides should be careful how they presume this will play out, because you couldn't have predicted the last 2 months. You can't predict the next 3 or 4. We're less than 100 days from all of this playing out with voting. Events change things. If I were a Republican or a Democratic politician, the thing that would still keep me up at night is the fear of a domestic terrorist attack. Not a domestic terrorist, but a terrorist domestically attacking us. We have arrested as a nation 8 men who came across the border illegally from Turkmenistan with ties to ISIS. They were plotting a terror attack in this country. 2 illegal aliens showed up at Quantico trying to break into the joint. Our enemies see the turmoil. So do the lone wolves. A 20-year-old with mental health issues, lone wolf, nearly killed Donald Trump, within a half inch of killing Donald Trump a week and 2 days ago. Events change things. I don't know how this will play out. Do I think that Kamala Harris is weaker than Joe Biden? I actually do think that Biden, despite all of his flaws, is a better candidate than Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is more empathetic, even as he's not the most empathetic as he claims. He has a more compelling background and biography. He was, however, a tragedy. Kamala Harris, her image is negative. She's got the opportunity to be reinvented by a media that will love her to stop Donald Trump, but the same media that lied about Joe Biden will lie about her. Their credibility is shot. Events change things. I don't know how this is going to play out. You don't know how this is going to play out. You can run to your conspiracy theories. You can run immediately to stole an election. You can learn to the illegals are going to steal it for Kamala. Whatever you want to run, you have no idea how this is going to play out. 2 months ago, Donald Trump was found guilty. A month ago, Joe Biden destroyed himself on a campaign stage. A week ago, Donald Trump was shot. A week and 2 days ago, he was shot. A week ago, Eileen Cannon threw that case out in Florida, and J.D. Vance was picked as the nominee. Less than a week ago, Donald Trump became formally the Republican nominee. A day ago, Joe Biden dropped out of the race. I have no idea what's going to happen. What an incredible time to be alive. Events change things, and the events just seem to be picking up steam. Buckle up. We still have a long way to go till November. Greetings, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number 877-973-7425. If you are a regular listener to this program, you know that my wife is not very political. In fact, when I was a college student, she was a friend. Her roommate and my roommate were engaged. That's how we met. In 1996, I was the chairman of the college Republicans. I got to drive Jack Kemp around. He and Bob Dole were running. I was in college and got to drive them around, or he got to drive Kemp around. He was campaigning through Macon, Georgia. Georgia was a swing state in 1998, or 96 rather. So I call her, and I just had my first cell phone. It was a giant thing. I call her. I'm the first car behind the limo. So you'll never guess what I'm doing. I'm driving Jack Kemp around. Who's Jack Kemp? Well, he's running to be vice president. Long, awkward pause. You have to run to be the vice president of the university? No, of the United States. My wife, not a political person. I say all that to say I'm getting stream of conscious texts from my wife right now about this Secret Service hearing that's going on right now. And she's like, this woman is a blithering idiot. This is a moron. Why does she keep doubling down on stupid answers? That is from my wife, who is completely non-political. Some of the Democrats in Congress are using this as an opportunity to call for gun control. Most of the Democrats, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ro Khanna, both super progressive members, are just eviscerating the director of the Secret Service. And the Republicans are doing the same thing. This is a bipartisan pile-on of this woman's incompetence. And the more she speaks, the more you realize she is stupid. This is what you get when you prioritize race and gender in hiring instead of competence. We'll get to that when we come back. First, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure thunderstorm. Y'all, true story. I was staying in a hotel, and the hotel had a fireplace in the little cottage I was staying in. And they were running the Eden Pure thunderstorm so that you couldn't smell the fireplace. In fact, it wiped out the odors of the fireplace. That's how good it is. Hotels use it. I've been in hotels that use it. It generates ozone, which goes into the cracks and crevices, the nooks and crannies where all the odors hide, and wipes them out. And it just works. And you can get 3 of them for less than $200 and save $200 by going to EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. And the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, it works. I travel with this thing. It is so small, I can keep it in my travel bag and plug it up as I need to plug it up and wipe them out if I'm in a hotel or a rental car. I've wiped out cigar and cigarette odors and rental cars and cigar smells, and my car just works. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. Hello there. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. There is breaking news. Nancy Pelosi has now endorsed Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee for president. That's actually pretty substantial news because she was a holdout. Barack Obama is still holding out his endorsement. The Clintons beat all of them to the endorsement after telling Joe Biden he should stay in the race. When he didn't, they stepped up. Okay. I gotta tell you. So my wife, I told you about her. She's watching the Secret Service hearing, and she texts me and she says, "Oh Lord, Marjorie Taylor Greene's about to start asking questions with a poop emoji." And then she texts me. I will read you. It's so bad that Marjorie comes across as having a sound mind and good arguments. And in fact, I see someone else on Twitter who's on the right but not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, when Marjorie Taylor Greene is taking you apart like this, you're not qualified to run anything. It's true. Remarkable. And it's going to get worse for this woman. Bipartisan condemnation of the Secret Service director. So here's a good friend of mine. He's a little probably too far down the conspiracy theory rabbit holes than he should be. And he actually suggested to me that one of the conspiracy theories that's circulating out there is that they want you to believe it was incompetence that led to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, and they want you to believe Joe Biden is incompetent. No, actually, I think the conspiracy theorists are trying to manipulate people, and it's remarkable the number of people who sent me that supposed experts video suggesting there was more than one shooter. The guy is a PhD, and he relied on his credentials. The problem is he's a PhD in neurotoxicity, particularly with plants. He's not an audiological expert. Audiology is not his forte. And the people who are expert audiologists said actually, if you pay attention to what he's citing, it is more likely than not that it was a single shooter, because the guy seemed to be getting echoes and crossfire confused with the shooter. The fact that a 20-year-old, troubled 20-year-old, could get that close to taking a president's life should bother all of us. We don't need to concoct conspiracies, and so many people want to concoct conspiracies because they just can't believe it. But when you hear the director of the Secret Service talk, you realize this woman is an idiot. Ro Khanna is one of the most progressive members of Congress, and he is just eviscerating this woman.
Awful event. Now, Director Cato, would you agree that this is the most serious security lapse since President Reagan was shot in 1981 of the Secret Service?
Yes, sir, I would.
And, do you know what Stuart Knight did when he was in charge at the time of the Secret Service? Do you know what he did afterwards?
He remained on duty.
He resigned. And Stuart Knight was not a Democratic appointee or a Republican appointee. Look, I'm not questioning your judgment.
He resigned. She thought he stayed on. It's just bad. And she also is refusing to answer to members of Congress substantive questions.
Were assigned to President Trump on the day of the rally.
Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the numbers of personnel that we had there, but we feel that there was a sufficient number of agents assigned.
There are reports that several agents assigned to the rally on July 13th were temporary agents not normally assigned to President Trump. Is that accurate?
What I can tell you is that the agents that were assigned to former President Trump are Secret Service agents that provide close protection to him, and that was what was actual on that day.
How many temporary agents were there that day?
Quite frequently, sir, during campaign events, the Secret Service utilizes agents from HSI or the Department of Homeland Security.
You don't know how many?
Supplement
you can't answer.
Our plan.
Have the investigators reconstructed the shooter's precise movements over?
She can't answer the question. She doesn't want to answer the question because here it turns out last week when the Trump team said that they were denied resources, the Secret Service's PR team came out and said that's not true. We gave them every resource they requested. We denied them no requests. Over the weekend, the New York Times and the Washington Post both reported that actually that was a lie. The Secret Service had denied the Trump team resources that they had requested. So the Secret Service lied last week. They lied. Now, I want to focus on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And the reason I want to focus on her, because she's a progressive. She hates Donald Trump, and she's furious with the Secret Service.
Respectfully, Dr. Cheadle, as well, as a person who has experienced an enormous amount of threat incidents, including incidents that have never been reported publicly, there is a common pattern that happens here, whether it's Secret Service, FBI, Capitol Police, local departments. After a critical security failure, we often hear there will be an independent investigation. That independent investigation gets set up. Usually the expectation is between 2 to 3 months after the incident, and then nothing really occurs from there. The report is usually not satisfactory to the questions that are usually being raised here. And most importantly, corrective action is rarely taken. If I were to state anything that I think is profoundly important, is that we need to have answers to the public. Ideally, I would encourage you and the agency to be more forthright with the members that still have yet to have their questioning, because the public deserves to have full confidence, and the stakes are too high. The violence that could break out in this political moment, regardless of party, in the event of someone getting hurt, constitutes a national security threat to the entire country. Thank you, and I yield back.
Yeah, listen, she clearly is concerned about this, and she asks this question that's getting a lot of attention.
Director Cheadle, is there a standard perimeter that the Secret Service establishes around an event, or are those perimeters independently determined per event and scenario?
There is no standard. Every event and every venue is different and treated as such.
So each event has a different perimeter that is established depending on the logistics of that event. Now, you established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And so what I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
A perimeter was established, and even though there were buildings that were outside of that perimeter, it wasn't just that building. There were a number of buildings in the area, and there was overwatch that was created to help mitigate some of those buildings.
Overwatch to mitigate. I mean, y'all, it's a valid question. It is a valid question from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The AR-15 is a common weapon. I'm getting a new one here next week. And it's common. And its range, as she said, 600 yards. This is an outdoor event. Why wasn't the perimeter secured to that range? An overwatch that failed, she says. These were substantive questions from AOC. She actually deserves credit for asking really substantive questions and making good points.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Cheadle, respectfully, what you had just laid out about 60 days. We are currently in the midst of an especially concentrated presidential campaign in the moment. That is also paired with, of course, elections happening across the country that are happening in about 100 days. So the notion of a report coming out in 60 days when the threat environment is so high in the United States, irrespective of party, is not acceptable. And I think it's very important to understand that. This is not theater. This is not about jockeying. This is about the safety of some of the most highly targeted and valued targets internationally and domestically.
Yeah, amen. I can't argue with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on this stuff. This is brutal. The fact that this woman won't resign. A little more from Ro Kahana as well here, who, again, with AOC, one of the more progressive members of Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the chair and the ranking member for convening this hearing on a bipartisan basis. I join them in condemning the horrific assassination attempt on the former president. I am relieved for the sake of the country that he wasn't seriously hurt and that he survived, and my thoughts with him and his family during such a traumatic event. I also want to express condolences to Corey Comprator's family and recognize his heroism in saving his daughter's lives, and to the victims of that awful event. Now, Director Cato, would you agree that this is the most serious security lapse since President
This is
Reagan
the part
was shot
you've heard.
in
I want you to keep
1981
listening.
of the Secret Service?
Yes, sir, I would.
And, do you know what Stuart Knight did when he was in charge at the time of the Secret Service? Do you know what he did afterwards?
He remained on duty.
He resigned. And Stuart Knight was not a Democratic appointee or a Republican appointee. Look, I'm not questioning your judgment. I just don't think this is partisan. If you have an assassination attempt on a president, a former president, or a candidate, you need to resign. That's what Stuart Knight did. He was a Republican appointee, and he took responsibility. And I think you need to reflect. This is not a question of you. It's a question of the American people. You cannot go leading a Secret Service agency when there is an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate. I would say that about anyone who is running. And so I guess my question to you is, what's the difference between your position and what Stuart Knight did?
What I will tell you, sir, is that I am dedicated to finding the answers to what happened. And like every Secret Service agent, we don't shirk from our responsibilities. I will remain on and be responsible to the agency, to this committee, to the former president, and to the American public.
But is there a reason you wouldn't just do what Stuart Knight did after the Reagan assassination attempt?
I believe that I provided an answer.
There's nothing more that you have to say? I mean, do you really believe at this moment, given how divided the country is and the questions asked, that your service in this role is the best for the nation? I mean, I'm not saying you can't do public service again, you can't do something else again. Do you really genuinely in your heart believe that you being in this role is what's right for America at this moment? I mean, do you think there are people who are Trump supporters who have confidence in you? The one thing that we've got to have agencies in this country that are transcend politics, that have the confidence of independents, Democrats, Republicans, progressives, conservatives. Do you really believe that the majority of this country has confidence in you right now?
I believe that the country deserves answers, and I am committed to finding those answers and providing those answers.
Well, look, I believe, Director Schittle, that you should resign. I think there are colleagues on both sides of the aisle who believe that, and I hope you'll consider it. I yield back.
Good for him. Again, that's one of the most progressive members of the United States Congress right there. Good for him. Y'all, they put their lives on the line protecting our communities and our country, and now Old Glory Bank is protecting them and their families. If you're a police officer, firefighter, military, or Border Patrol agent, you're what Old Glory Bank proudly calls a protector. Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is honoring protectors with Old Glory Protect, a free $100,000 line-of-duty death benefit available to Old Glory Bank account holders with direct deposit. That's it. Old Glory Bank Protect is available to all military personnel, including Guard and Reserve, firefighters, including volunteer firefighters, police, and Border Patrol agents. From the beginning, Old Glory Bank has been the bank for first responders. Now, with Old Glory Protect, the proof is in the protection. Old Glory Protect. Again, it's a free $100,000 line-of-duty death benefit available to Old Glory Bank account holders with direct deposit. Old Glory Protect. Old Glory Protect. Protecting those who protect us. You can open an account online at oldglorybank.com It takes less than 8 minutes. OldGloryBank.com. Terms and conditions apply. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Well, I wanted to play you some audio from Congressman Jared Moskowitz. He's a Democrat from Florida. I wanted to play you the audio, but it's so good, it goes beyond the time I have right now. So, oh my gosh, holy cow. Y'all got to come back and hear this. This is a Democratic member of Florida just mopping the floor with Director Cheadle of the Secret Service. This is a brutal. This woman should say, this hearing is still ongoing. She should say, I quit right now. I'm leaving, and just get up and flee the room. It's going that badly. And she is an idiot. This woman is just not a bright person. She is coming across as defensive and arrogant, and also doesn't have answers. She does. It's remarkable that and even the Democrats on the committee, even the Democrats are noting this, that a president of the United States was nearly assassinated live on television a week and 2 days ago, and we don't have any answers from the Secret Service. And she's saying it's going to be at least 60 days. That's really, really unacceptable. That's really, really unacceptable. You got to hear this audio when we come back.